Now, ISO 27001 is not GDPR. If someone says to you, okay, we'll get you GDPR compliant, we need to start you off with 27001, or they say ISO 27001 is the standard for the certification for GDPR, or it's focused on GDPR, all of this is wrong. We'll set out why and we'll highlight 4 key facts along the way. And stay with us as we'll give you some stunning statistics on the adoption of ISO 27001 in the UK and the European Economic Area. You're going to be very surprised. Hi, I'm Robert Bohr, the founder and CEO of Keepable, the award-winning solution saving you time, money and stress on privacy, giving you a great answer for the board and customers. This video is part of Privacy Kitchen, free video help on GDPR and all things privacy. If you're new here, please do click subscribe and notified to hear about more of our fantastic videos. Links are in the notes as always. Now, first off, let me say I love security. I'm a massive fan of it. I'm a massive fan of anything that increases security, including ISO 27001, the international standard for information security. I actually lobbied to put a global group through 27001, and I did so. It was a small group, but it was global. And so I understand 27001 very well. But 27001 is not GDPR. It's not the starting point for a GDPR program, and it's not focused on GDPR. And here's why. So our first key point, while there's some overlap, they're focused on different things. GDPR's longer title clearly states it's about the protection of natural persons, that's living individuals to you and me, with regards to the processing of personal data and the free movement of such data. It goes on to set out many rules that you'll be familiar with, such as providing appropriate privacy notices on collection, about only collecting for specified purposes, about having an EU representative or a data protection officer if you need one, basing your processing on one of the 6 core lawful grounds, perhaps an additional ground depending on what that data is. None of that is in 27001. Now, the first sentence in 27001's introduction confirms that it's there to provide requirements for establishing, implementing, and maintaining and continually improving an information security management system. Brilliant. It's absolutely fantastic, but it's not GDPR. Now, together with 27002, it goes on to offer suitable controls to address security risks and create that system. Again, let's be very clear, security is fundamental to data protection, particularly at this time when so many people are working from home. But security as defined for 27001 and as generally used looks at securing information assets to reduce the risk to the organization. And not only does it cover personal data, it covers non-personal data such as confidential information, intellectual property, etc. It's far broader from a security envelope perspective. Now, even when GDPR talks about security, it's not talking about information security in that way. GDPR only talks about security in terms of addressing the risk to individual data subjects from your processing of their personal data. It's far narrower from a security envelope perspective. Think of it as information security for the purposes of data protection. Okay, our second key point, and here are GDPR's 7 principles. There's no mention of security in 6 of them. I'll just say the summaries: lawfulness, fairness, and transparency, purpose limitation, data minimization, accuracy, storage limitation, integrity and confidentiality, they really mean security. And for completeness, the 7th principle, accountability. So while security is absolutely fundamental to data protection and it's one of GDPR's 7 principles, it is only one of 7 principles, or just 14%. The other 6 don't talk about security. You might argue that accuracy implies protecting integrity and hence it's security, but that's really covered in security principle anyway, because it specifically mentions integrity. Now, our third key point is the very different way they look at risk. Sorry to say, GDPR doesn't care about the risks to your organization. GDPR only cares about the risks to the individual data subjects, to be specific, to their fundamental rights and freedoms. It's a real outlier to the normal enterprise risk programs. ISO 27002, which goes with 27001, confirms that it's the risk to the organization that's the focus, comprised of or derived from the risk to its information assets. And you can see confirmation of this throughout European documents. For example, the European Agency for Cybersecurity, ENISA, 2 documents linked here in the notes. Now, our 4th key point is a belter, and I checked and rechecked this data a number of times, and I checked it again just now because I just can't believe it. Those active in the security and 27001 arena that I've talked to about it are also stunned. In practice, GDPR applies to every organization in the EEA, and there are millions out there. On EU figures in in 2017, there were roughly 2.5 million active enterprises in the UK and about 28 million active enterprises in the UK plus the EEA30. GDPR applies to all 28 million active enterprises. Now, the International Standards Organization, ISO, which creates standards like ISO 27001, released a survey showing the number of valid certificates to organizations for various standards, including 27001, by country in each year. In 2018, in the EEA and the UK combined, there were just 10,661 certificates for 27001 in issue to organizations. There were 28 million organizations, or active enterprises, so that's an adoption rate of just 0.04%. Now, here are some more surprising stats based on those EU business population figures and the ISO's 2018 survey. Nearly half of the EEA30, 14 countries, had fewer than 100 organizations with ISO 27001 certificates in 2018. Portugal had just 85, for example, Denmark just 48, and only 12 of that EEA30 had more than 200 organizations with certificates, and only 2 made it over 1,000 certificates. Now, the UK, which of course is no longer in the EEA, had the most. It had 2,444 certificates. With our 2.5 million active enterprises, that made us one of only 3 countries in the old EEA 31 to get above just 0.1% adoption. And the UK had more than twice the next country, which was Germany, on 1,057 certificates. With their 28 million active enterprises, that gives Germany a 0.04% adoption of 27001, which is actually the EEA 31 average. Now, we've relied on the ISO's own figures and on the EU figures on business populations. And on these figures, at 0.0x% adoption in the EEA, ISO 27001, much as I like it, and I'm a fan of security, it just doesn't seem statistically relevant to discussions of a law that applies to every organization. It's not speaking to 99.9%. So there you go. If someone says you have to have ISO 27001 to be GDPR compliant, we've seen our 4 points here, that's not true. If someone says ISO 27001 is the standard for GDPR, that's not correct either. Now, we'll be doing another video on ISO 27701, which is an extension to 27001 that has GDPR in its sights. Of course, it's an extension to 27001, and looking at the adoption of 27001, that doesn't sound like it's going to be statistically relevant either. I feel quite bad about this because I'm a fan of 27001 and of security, but these figures are shocking. And if someone says 27001 is the great starting point for GDPR, I totally disagree. The right starting point for GDPR, and you can see our 10 steps to GDPR compliance video, is to do a personal data inventory. Find out where your personal data is, where it lives, how it passes through the data lifecycle in your organization, who you share it with, etc. Then you can work out your gap analysis, you can move to remedy and get into compliance. So there we go. Please do look at our other Privacy Kitchen videos, including what is a breach for GDPR. Please do visit us at keepable.com. Please do get involved and use hashtag Privacy Kitchen to tell us the topics and questions you want us to cover. And stay well in the meantime, and I look forward to seeing you in Privacy Kitchen soon.